20, 25 people in the waiting room all the time. We're getting crushed. It doesn't matter if it's 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. And we're under a federal law called EMTALA, which basically says if you're an emergency department, you have to see everyone, regardless of their ability or intention of paying you. So 70% of the work I do goes uncompensated. When I see a patient, I take 40 bucks out of my own pocket and give it away. I got to pay $20 a malpractice, $20 to transcribe the chart. That's emergency medicine today. So you're seeing, we're kind of the newspaper at the bottom of the birdcage of society. So you can imagine, I have seen some things in my life. But I want to tell you about something that I saw that tops everything that I've seen in the ER that really was the impetus for why I wrote this book. I drop my kids off at school when I'm off, and I go to the local Starbucks, which happens to be located close to one of these 24-hour fitness places. And I was sitting there and I was having my coffee, trying to wake up, and I see coming down the sidewalk in the distance a fat person on a Segway. Y'all familiar with a Segway, a little scooter thing right around? And coming down the sidewalk, and I'm like, they're probably gonna come here to Starbucks. And they come down the sidewalk, and then they hop over the curb and do all the cool things the Segway can do. But they don't come to Starbucks, they go to the 24-hour fitness place. And they pull this thing up, and they park it by the door, and they get off. They go inside and get on a treadmill. That, in a nutshell, is our concept of fitness and how the fitness industry today runs. It is absolutely stupid. If I wanted to create a notion of health and fitness that was guaranteed to fail and could be as stupid as possible and waste as much of your time as I possibly could, it would be exactly what we have today. Okay? So that is the impetus for the book. And everyone's laughing, but how many times, for those of you that do work out, how many times have you fought for the close parking space at the gym and go in and get on the treadmill? I've been to 2 large gyms, Gainesville Health and Fitness. I've been to the Dave Barton gym. You go in there and they have these big cardio theaters in the upstairs. How many times have you watched someone take the escalator and get on the stair stepper? This is what we're doing, and it's completely stupid. Now, the book I wrote, I was very interested in doing a very serious scientific book. And as always, the publishers will always tart your book up and make it look like the cover of Men's Health, which they did, but I'm actually very pleased with it because the little subtitle actually describes the premise of the book pretty well. It's a research-based program for strength training, bodybuilding, and complete fitness in 12 minutes a week. So let's break that down. First is this book is research-based. Everything else that I said below there are extraordinary statements. And extraordinary statements require extraordinary proof. So I made certain that every chapter and every statement made in this book was culled from the existing scientific literature. There's nothing that I state in here and my co-author states that is not backed up by the scientific literature. The interesting thing is that literature did not exist until about the past 5 years because the majority of exercise physiology literature was stuck in a paradigm of the aerobics craze. And the reason they were stuck is the whole notion of when your only tool is a hammer, the whole world is a nail. Well, the only real meaningful measurement tool that they had through most of their history was VO2 max testing or oxygen uptake testing, which required low intensity exercise performed at a steady state in order to be able to collect data. So lo and behold, most of the data that was collected to health benefits was all linked to that, and that's kind of how it all went. But in the recent past, we've gained the capability to test for all these different enzymes that I'm going to drag y'all to in a minute. And now there's a big body of literature that says that's not the way to do it. It's a waste of time. You can get better results in a much shorter period of time. So, strength training, bodybuilding, and complete fitness. It turns out if you're exercising properly, those 3 things are one and the same thing. You build your body, you'll gain strength, and you'll gain complete fitness. Because there's no other way. The only way that you can get at your cardiovascular system, for instance, is by performing mechanical work with muscle. But really, and what we'll talk about up there, is the real problem with health in America today is we are all, to one degree or another, suffering from the metabolic syndrome. Okay? It's not about calories in versus calories out. It's not about getting on the treadmill and atoning for your sins of eating the scone or whatever it is you had for breakfast. It is not that at all. It's about biological signaling. And that's what this book is about. And you can accomplish all three of those things with one protocol in 12 minutes a week. And that's what really gets most people their ire of. They just think that cannot be true. Okay? My workout, the last one I did, took 8 minutes, 40 seconds. I work out once a week. I do nothing else. I'm 47 years old. I'm, at last measurement, 8.1% body fat. I have a resting heart rate of 48. My cholesterol profiles are clean. A couple of years ago, I had horrible crushing chest pain, thought I was having a heart attack. I got cath, my coronaries are completely clean. Turns out at that time I had a viral infection of pericarditis around the heart. But what we try to show in the book is that brevity, 12 minutes, once a week, is not just something that we've done and manipulated things so that we can get away with it. It is actually a requirement for the production of best results. Okay? So I'm going to go through a little bit of what we've done in the book to lay the groundwork for what's on the cover. And before we can do that, we got to get the reader in the correct mind frame. And we have a chapter called Whom Can You Trust? And my co-author, John Little, is a really amazing guy. He's brilliant. But he is the authorized biographer for the Bruce Lee estate. And I was watching some film footage that he had on his computer when we were together a few weeks back. And there was a martial arts enthusiast that was asking Bruce Lee for, give me your knowledge, tell me everything you know, kind of thing. And they had 2 cups of tea, and he had one, Bruce Lee had one. He said, okay, but these 2 cups of tea represent our knowledge. This is my knowledge, this is your knowledge. If you want me to give you my knowledge, you got to empty yours out. And that's what we asked the reader to do in the book, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do right now, because we got to start blank slate. I'm going to take you through mini medical school and get you to understand why we do things the way that we do. But first, we got to be able to forgive ourselves, and we got to understand we make natural mistakes about fitness because our thinking involves heuristics. And you guys will see this in your clients all the time. What heuristics is a thinking mechanism that we have evolved. And heuristics is basically we like to tell stories to ourselves about observed phenomena in nature. Okay? Because evolution and the evolution of our brain is not about truth. Our brain is not about discovering truth. It's about survival. And a lot of times we don't have time to discover truth. Otherwise we'll get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. We don't pass our DNA forward into the future, so that's not preserved. So we make observations, we come to premature conclusions. One of the biggest is, I like to call it the swimmer's body. Everyone says, I'm going to take up swimming because I want the long, lean muscles of a swimmer. I don't want to be all bulky like a bodybuilder, so I'm not going to lift weights. Well, what we don't understand is that in many cases, it's not the activity that molded the body. It's the body type that selected the activity. Okay? So, want to test it? Go to a collegiate swim meet. Okay? And recognize that the college swim teams have already had a prior selection bias to get the best bodies for that type of sport on their team to begin with. But start off watching the 8 finals and the quarterfinals and look up at the starting line and you'll see multiple different body types. Go through the quarterfinals and the semifinals, all of a sudden they start to look a little bit more similar. And by the finals, it looks like you got a big line of clones on the starting line. Athletic competition is accelerated evolution. It is selective pressure, time compressed, so that you can see it. So many of the activities are a body type selecting the activity. And that natural mistake in our thinking can be exploited. Taibo, for instance. I want to look like Billy Banks. My most common question now when someone finds out that I'm A fitness expert is, what do I think of P90X, and can I really get ripped in 90 days?